So you just got the info that Framer is the best website builder and you kind of want to learn how to build websites with it from scratch without any coding. Well, in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to help you with. I'm showing you how to build this simple yet stunning website from scratch, step by step. Along the way, we are learning the basics of Framer, SVG animations, crazy background effects, appear animations, and of course, responsiveness. So I'm not even wasting any more of your time. My name is Nandi. This is Framer University, and let's get started. So yeah, it's not a joke, we are really building this website that you can see right here on my screen. It has this amazing animated visual on the right. It has a pretty simple text block on the left with some animated buttons and a little simple hero, or not hero, but navigation on the top. So yeah, super simple, but yet stunning. As I said, you can see it has some gradient background and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Basically, the way I'm going to do this video is first we're going to build the base of the website. So we're going to build the left content block, and then we're going to go on to creating this crazy animated SVG on the right with animated background components, blending modes, SVG animations. It's going to be crazy. And then we're going to also create the navigation bar at the top. Then we're going to make everything responsive so it works on phones as well. And at the end, we're simply clicking the publish button and our site is going to be live on the internet. So without any further ado, let's get started. As you can see, I have this project here on my screen in Framer. This is a blank project. So this is what you're going to see when you start something. Maybe it's going to be white here, but you can just switch it to black. However, what I want you to do is to go down to the description and remix this project, because you're going to find a starter page here on the left pages panel, because you're going to have a little Framer logo that you can use, that we're also going to use in this tutorial. And it might be also a little bit easier going back to the home page where you actually will find the finished website. If there's something that you don't understand and you want to see, okay, how it's built. So yeah, just remix this project, go to the starter and start building with me. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the breakpoints. So here, this is our desktop breakpoint, and we can just add breakpoints really simply by clicking this top right breakpoint button, clicking tablet and phone. So now, as you can see, we have all three breakpoints of our website right next to each other here on this canvas. Looks really cool. So if I add something here, it will be visible on all of these breakpoints. And if I want to make an adjustment, because for example it's too large for phone, I can make this adjustment here, and it's now kind of optimized for mobile. You can see it jumps to a smaller size. So basically that's what we're going to use breakpoints for. We're going to optimize a little bit differently, because this is not the best way for optimization. There is an easier way, but yeah, this is just how breakpoints work in a nutshell. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to make sure that our breakpoints is a stack, because by default you're going to see that frames that you draw on the desktop will be positioned absolutely. You can see that it's absolute on the right panel. You can see type is absolute, and you can also see it's absolute because you can freely move it anywhere. So whenever you see something like this, that you can move it freely anywhere, you have to know that something isn't right, because this positioning type is not the best. What we have to use instead is a relative positioning, because that's much better for responsiveness. So how we switch this to relative, because you can see I cannot really do that, relative is grayed out. Well, it's because the breakpoint is not a stack, and that's why we have to make sure that we turn it into a stack. Really easy way to do that is to go select the desktop, and on the right press this plus button next to layout, and now you can see this little frame jumped into its relative position. Now relative is available in this frame, and now you're going to see I cannot put it anywhere. So it's going to be a little bit harder positioning this frame. Now it's going to be positioned according to its parent stack settings. So parent is now the desktop frame. Stack settings are here on the layout section on the right panel. So if I want to center it, I just set distribute to center. If I want to left align it, I just set the left alignment. And yeah, basically this is how relative position elements are positioned within a layout. And it's really great because we can duplicate these. You can see I can easily reorder these elements. They nicely adopt. So for example, if I make one larger or smaller, the rest of them are adopting. So this is the setup that we need. So the settings that we're going to have on this desktop in terms of the stack, we're going to have vertical direction, star distribute, center alignment, and then gap will be 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw another frame. So I'm just pressing down F on my keyboard and drawing a frame within. This will be the main container on the website. So this is how websites usually are structured. We have a main container on the website and we have the sections within that. To make sure that browsers also know that this is actually the main container on the site, and to make sure that our SEO is improved and well performing, we have to set accessibility tag on the right panel. So after selecting the main container, I can go on the right, accessibility tag, and set it to main. So now browsers will also know that this is the main container. Since this is a relative position element, I can set a really useful relative width for this, because if this is fixed, you can see right now it's just fixed over 700 pixels, it's not really going to adopt. It's not really going to be a fluid, nice, responsive structure. So what I have to do is I have to set this to fill. So now whatever I do with the width of the website, it will nicely adopt and fill up the available space. So I'm going to remove the fill color and turn the main container to a stack as well with this layout button. This is really important. Most frames will be stacks on our website. So now you can see that this main container has a fixed height, but the desktop breakpoint is not really adapting to it. So if I make it larger, the desktop just stays 800 pixels. Well, it's because it's a fixed number, 800 pixels. Of course it's gonna stay like that. So if you want it to have a dynamic height, we have to set it to fit content, so it always fits the content within. So now if I change the main container, our desktop breakpoint is also changing in height. Really nice. So now, as I told already, we're gonna have another section here, or frame within the main container, and this is going to be our hero section. So I'm gonna just call it section. And on the right panel, I'm going to give it an accessibility tag, which is going to be section. So now that we have this, we have to make sure that this section is actually sitting on the top of the website, right? It shouldn't be in the center. So we have to change its parent's stack settings, because this is a relative element. So to change its position, we have to go and select its parent, which is the main in this case, and set it to vertical, start, and center, and gap will be 0. Really cool. So now this section, you can probably guess that this will also be fill, because I want it to fill up the available space. So let's set the width to fill, and then basically that's it. I'm going to also turn this into a layout, so everything I place within will be relatively positioned, and to make sure that the main container is fitting this height, I'm going to set its height to fit content. So now if I start duplicating this section here within, it's nicely getting placed right below each other. So this is how we're building up our website with these little sections. Now let's just preview this. You can see I preview, and this hero section that I'm creating is just, it's really small and on the top of the website. You can see the reason why this is happening is because this section here is having a fixed height. What we want to do instead is make sure that it's 100 VH. 100 VH basically means that 100% of the given viewport height. So I want this hero section to fill up the available space all the time in our viewport, no matter the screen size. So you can see that on a smaller screen, it indeed fills up the available space, but as my screen gets larger, it's not really doing that. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to set a min height here on the right panel, and we're going to set it to viewport 100 VH. So now our min height is 100 VH. So if we preview this, it's nicely going to fill up the available viewport no matter the viewport height. So even on my tablet, on my phone, on my large TV screen, it's going to fill it up. Pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to remove the fill color from this section. One last thing that we have to do before adding actual text and buttons and content within our section is we have to create a frame that holds all of that content. So I'm going to just draw a content frame here. I'm going to name it content, and I'll set the width to fill, of course, And what I want to do here, the reason why I'm drawing this content frame is because I want to make sure that the content I'm putting within the section, so text layers, buttons, illustrations, they have a nice contained max width, so not filling up the available space. So the content will have a max width. So I'm just adding it here in the right panel. It's going to be 1100 pixels. So now as you can see, if the size is smaller than 1100, it's nicely scaling and filling up the available space. However, once it reaches that number, it will no longer grow bigger than that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Now I'll also turn this content into a stack with this layout button here, or this little plus button, and then I'm going to remove the fill color. So yeah, pretty cool. This is the base that we need, and now we can start adding some content. So let's just start with this left side and add the text layers and the buttons here. So I'm gonna just press T on my keyboard and then click within this content. And I'm gonna write, what is here? Let your imagination run wild. The font that we're using is OpenSauce 1. I just found this font, it looks pretty cool. I'm going to make the size 76 pixels, and when I'm using a larger text like this, I'm usually setting the letter spacing to a little bit smaller value, so maybe minus 0.02, and the weight will be semi-bold. Pretty cool. I'll set this width to fill, so it fills up the available space. So for example, if I start entering breakpoints like phone or something, it will nicely break into multiple lines. And then what I also want to do is I want to make sure that it actually breaks into multiple lines already. So the way I can do that is by adding a max width to this text layer. So max width, I'm just changing it, and yeah, something like this for 150 pixels perhaps. So I want this to be positioned on the left, so I'll have to make sure that this content frame has a vertical direction and left alignment. So now you can see that this text is nicely positioned on the left. The content frame can have fit height. So if I duplicate this, now it's growing with the content within. So it's pretty cool. What I also want to do is I want to make sure that the heading 1, so the most important text on the website, has also an accessibility tag, which is age 1. So this is how we tell browsers that, hey, this is our main heading on the website. This is what is like the most important text on our page. And then this will just be a paragraph. Now that will be the only tool you'll need for creating websites from start to finish. So the only tool you'll need for creating website. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, 20 pixels. I'm going to also change the letter spacing. Now we're having a little bit smaller text, so we can increase the letter spacing slightly. And the line height will be 1.7. And probably I'm going to drop the opacity of this text layer to 50%. And yeah, the weight will probably be medium. Great. So as you can see, these two text layers are quite close. We can change the gap between them by changing their parents' stack settings. So as you can see, the gap is changing here on the right panel, or I can also change it here on the canvas. So maybe I need something like, I don't know, 16 maybe. Okay, so now we have these two text layers. The next thing that we need to add is these buttons. So let's do that as well. I'm going to duplicate this text layer. I'm going to write start with AI. And I'm going to set the width here of this text layer to fit content. So it fits the content within itself. And then the max width will be removed. We no longer need the max width. I'm going to change the size to 16. The color will be full white. And probably I'm going to make it, I'm going to add blending mode difference to it. This basically means that since this text layer is white and it has difference blending mode, it doesn't matter what background color it has or the color of its background, because it will always be visible. So I can wrap this text layer in a frame to turn it into a button. So right click and stack, and this stack will be fit width. So it fits the content within, which is the text. And I can just make this height a little bit larger, maybe 48 pixels. And then I'm going to add a fill color to this. And as you can see, as I change the background color of the text or the frame that has the text to white, the text stays readable because of the difference blending mode. If we wouldn't have this here, it wouldn't really be visible. So yeah, it's a pretty cool little property where you can add here. So I'm going to rename this tag to button, and to make sure that it looks a little bit better, we will add some space on the left and right of this text here. We're going to use padding for that. So text have padding control. As you can see, as I increase, it just adds space within. So actually I just need left and right 2020, and yeah, that's basically it. And to round the corners, we can just change the radius here to 12. And that's basically it. We have the button. However, you can see that on the side here, it has a little hover state where an icon appears. Now, the great thing is that in Framer, you can create these really easily. I mean, the hover states and the icons as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a little like frame here. It's going to be 24 pixels, and we're going to draw the icon. You might say that, Natalie, I cannot like create icons. Like I usually just go on a website to, I don't know, copy icons from there, but no, you can create icons. Let me show you. It's super simple. But before that, I just cannot stand seeing that this text here is not the correct weight, so I'm going to set it to semi-bold. So I'm going to zoom in on this frame, and I'm going to actually rename it to icon. Now, you can see that in Framer on the top, we have vector tools, and we can just click either this rectangle or press R on our keyboard and draw a little rectangle here. Really simple. I'm going to draw it here, and so how do we make like a little AI icon with this that looks like this, right? Well, it's really simple. We just have to double click this path that we created, add some points here. So we're going to add points on these sides, and then I'm going to select the top right and then just move it like boom, boom, and then boom, boom, and then here, boom, 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 and then here as well, boom, 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 boom. You just have to like know how much or how many like arrow keys have you pressed with shift. By pressing down shift, you're moving like 10 pixels. Without pressing down shift, you're moving 1 pixels. But by the way, you can set this amount here. So by default, it's 1. With shift, it's 10, but you can change these values. And now we have this little star to make sure that it's a little bit more, I don't know, kind. I don't know if an icon can be kind, but yeah, we can round its corners to make it a little bit better. So it's gonna be maybe 0.5 radius. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe make this a little bit smaller, or maybe it's fine like this. But what I want to do with this is make sure that it has fill white color, and then I'm going to duplicate it. There you go. I'm going to make it smaller, put it here, put it right here, make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, just fine tune. And once we have this, we can position both of them roughly in the center of this frame. Maybe we can put them a little bit more to the left like this. And yeah, I think this looks quite okay. And I'll just select this top right and change the color to 50% transparency. So now that's basically it. We have created the AI icon. I can just press Command X to cut it. Now it's on my clipboard, and I can paste it here within. And I can set the direction of this button stacked to vertical, so elements are not placed right below each other, but right next to each other, so horizontal direction. Problem is that we cannot really see the icon because it's white, but you already learned that you can use difference blending mode if the color is white, and it will make sure that it's always visible. So blending difference is set on this icon. So now it's visible. Pretty cool. Now I'm looking at this, I kind of want to make it a little bit more rounded like this. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. Cool. The spacing here could be decreased, maybe 6, maybe even smaller, I don't know. 4. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. And yeah, we want to make sure, actually it can be a little bit more. You can see I'm just messing around so much. But yeah, basically that's it. We have this start with AI text or button here. But as you can see, we want to make sure that it appears when we hover over, right? So how do we do that? Well, it's really simple. We just have to turn this button into a component, right click, create component. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this here to primary. This is, by the way, the component canvas. This is where we're going to create the secondary like variant of the button, and this is where we're creating the hover states and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the icon and set it to absolute positioning. Now it's not going to be part of the flow, so I can position it anywhere. Even when we're using a stack, we can set something to absolute, and then it's going to be, you know, freely movable. I'm going to put it here to the left, and I'm going to set the opacity to 0, so it's not visible. Then I'm going to select the variant, click here below and select hover, and then I'm going to set the opacity back to 1 and the position to relative. So now if I hover over, boom, there you go. We have this nice effect. What we can also do is here on the default state, we can set a little rotation. So maybe -10 and then, or -20. And then here on the hover, we're going to set it back to 0. So it also slightly like rotates as it appears. So yeah, it looks pretty nice. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure that the text is not selectable, because that's not really a great experience on the button. So user select none is added to the text layer itself. And yeah, basically that's it. You can add a link here on the top right. But what you're going to notice is that when you're reusing this component, you cannot really change the text, because if you go within and change the text, it changed them both instances. So this is where we're going to have to use variables. So I'm going to just select the text layer on the primary, and the content property on the right, you see, has this little plus button. It means that we can create a plain text variable for that. It's going to be called label. And now if I come here and duplicate it, I can rename it to learn more. Pretty cool. Now I want to do the same for links. For example, I want to have different links on each of my buttons. So I'm going to click here, add the link, and turn that into a variable as well. Now I have this link property as well here on the right panel. So to make sure that the start with AI and the learn more is right next to each other, you can see we cannot really do that here, because we have this content frame and we can set the direction to vertical, but then everything is set to vertical. The trick here is that we have to create an additional like wrapping stack for these two items. So I'm going to select both of them, right click, add stack, and now I can set this stack to vertical direction, or sorry, horizontal direction, and now they're going to be right next to each other. The gap can be adjusted here to maybe 12, and then the width can be fit content, so it's nicely fitting the content and putting them on the left side. Nice. So now we just need a secondary like style, so I just go within the button and then create a secondary variant where basically it is going to be 0% for the fill color. We're going to add the border. It's going to be white, maybe 10-15%. Then add the hover state where we change that to 100. And that's basically it. Now if I select this button here and change the variant to secondary, we nicely have this. Pretty cool. You're going to see a few issues here. First of all, I don't like that it's animated. Maybe it is just me, but when it's just a simple color change on the border, I want it to happen instantly. You can change this transition here on the specific variant that you want to change the animation on, and just set it to instant, for example, and this will still animate and this will be instant. Nice, really cool. This works. And when I hover here, you can see that this learn more button is just jumping, and that's not really nice. I want it to move smoothly. So for that, we can use a component called layout jump preventer. This is a little issue in Framer, but I created a component for it that fixes it. So you just have to go to the Framer site, just search for layout jump preventer, copy it to your clipboard, and then go within the button or the element that is changing the width, which is, in this case, this primary button, and put it here. I'm just going to press Command and V, and make sure that you're not nesting it within the component further down. You just have to put it right below the primary, set it to absolute positioning. It's an invisible component, and you just set the direction to horizontal because we are fixing that horizontal layout jump. And now you're going to see as I hover over Start with AI, the Learn More button is nicely animating to the right instead of jumping in an ugly way. Now, what I don't really like is here, I see a little bit more space than here. It's because these text layers have a little more like space added to them on the bottom. So yeah, we kind of have to equal this spacing out. The way you can do that, because you can see that now if I change the gap, it's changing everywhere. But what I need is a little bit more gap here and a little bit less here. So the way I'm doing that is I'm wrapping these two text layers in their own stack. And by the way, there is a shortcut for it. Let me tell you that because I kind of want to use it. It's Option Command Enter. So you can just press that and there you go. I'm going to set the alignment to the left, gap to 20. And then I can set the content gap to a little bit larger. And now you can see that only these buttons are being pushed away because of this gap. So I can set it to a larger value. And now it's nice and equal. Okay, so if I look at the website here, you can see it also has a text layer here, no credit card required. Let's add that as well. So I'm gonna just copy this text layer here, Command C, paste it here, and then I'm gonna wrap this text layer and the buttons in a common stack. So select both of them, add stack, because I wanna make sure that they are a little bit closer to each other. So left alignment and the gap will be maybe 12 or 16, I don't know. And I'm gonna just write here, no credit card required. And I'm gonna make it smaller. So it's gonna be, I don't know, 12 pixels, maybe 13, something like that. Letter spacing can be 0. And basically that's it. Maybe set the gap to a little bit smaller, 14. And yeah, that looks great. Maybe the opacity can be dropped to 30%. And yeah, that looks really cool. Nice. So we basically finished the complete left side. Now comes the interesting part, this stunning visual on the right. So how the hell is this created? Well, it's really easy. We just drew a frame on the left, then press Command X, then paste it within the content frame. Now it's going to be placed below. I don't really want that. What I want is to have a left part in the content frame and the right part. So now the content frame has 3 elements, stack, stack, and frame. And these 2 stacks are both part of the left column, so they should be wrapped in a stack and set that to 34 gap. And it's going to be called left. And now if I set the content to vertical, it's perfect. We have the left here, and then we have this frame on the right here. I'm going to call it illustration. I'm going to set the background color to black. And basically that's it. I'm going to set the width to fill, I think. Maybe the left is, yeah, the left is also fill. The gap between them can be 24 or maybe just 10 for now. And yeah, I'm going to set the height to fill here, I think, on the illustration. Or maybe even a little bit larger. It's going to have a fixed height of a little bit larger, maybe 530 pixels. Now, since we increased the height of the illustration, you can see that this left is sticking to the top. To make sure that doesn't happen, the content frame can have alignment to the center. So now this text or the left block is going to be always like vertically centered. Great. So in this illustration frame, we're going to create that illustration. So first of all, we just have to draw out this like shape, this globe. Again, with the new vector tools, we just click here, oval, create a frame here or an oval. It's going to be something like this. And then we're going to remove the fill color. We're going to add a stroke. So I'm going to click here on the right, stroke, and just paste in the color that I need. The width will be 2. And that's basically it. Now I have the globe. Well, it's not really a globe yet, so let's make it a globe. I'm going to duplicate this with Command and D. And then I'm going to make it smaller. Like I just press down Option on my keyboard and make it smaller. Well, not like that. I kind of want to make just the width smaller. So I'm going to deselect this lock so the aspect ratio is no longer locked. So I can just do this, duplicate again, do this, and then duplicate again and do this. Looks pretty cool. Now, if you imagine this being rotated and duplicated, we get a full globe. So I'm going to select all of these ovals, duplicate it, so Command D, and then rotate with this. And there you go. We have the final shape. So now all I have to do is select all of the ovals here and group them. So I'm going to press Command G, and now they are grouped. So to animate this, we have to turn it into a vector set or place it in a vector set. So right click and create a vector set. There you go. Now we are in the vector set view. I'm going to remove the fill color. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller because you can see it's slightly cropping because of the stroke. So I'm gonna select the group within and make it a little bit smaller. Something like this. So if I press Command and P and preview, you can see that we just have the shape here and it's not really animated. So what we can do is we can select all of these ovals on the left and on the right click Effects and Stroke. And this is where we add a stroke animation. So now with this default setting, this is what we get. As you can see, they just animate in and that's it. However, we can set it to a continuous movement. So we can loop and set it to continuous. And now it's gonna look something like this. It's just gonna loop around continuously. To make it a little bit crazier, what I will do is I'll set the easing to linear and then 0.5 seconds. So now it's a little bit faster and there's no easing, it's just like linear. And then what I'm gonna do to make it even crazier is I'm gonna select the second oval here. I'm gonna set the offset to 10%, then on the next one to 20, 30, and I'm gonna go through each of these, setting a little bit larger offset on each one of these. So now if I preview, you can see that this is what we have. A much better effect. Or I don't know, it's a little bit crazy, I like it more. So now I can go back to the page and I can just end it within this illustration frame. It can be absolute position, so I'm just gonna center it with Option H and V. And you're gonna see that now it's gonna be just centered there, playing in the hero. You can see that on the finished, it's a little bit different. It's a little even crazier. So let's go the extra mile here. So the next thing that we have to do to add, like create this crazy effect is to go to the FrameUni site and search on the resources page for the animated gradient component. You might be asking, how the hell are we gonna use this for this effect? Well, let me show you. It's really interesting. So we're gonna just paste it within the illustration frame, and I'm gonna make sure that it fills up the available space. So it's gonna be absolute positioned, and it's just filling up the available space. I can set this component on the right to preview, yes, and you can see that this is a crazy like animated gradient component. It looks really amazing, and yeah, if you preview. It just looks great. However, it's not really looking like this, right? So how do we do this? Well, what we have to do is go on the right panel of this animated gradient component and set the preset to custom. And we have to customize a really specific setting here that I'm not going to do because I already experimented with it for a long time and I found the perfect setting. So I'm going to just paste them here. So now as you can see, I changed all of these settings. I also added noise, which adds noise and it looks great. And yeah, you can maybe copy these settings if you want, or just go to the homepage and copy the component here, whatever works for you. But you can see that it still is not really what we need. And the magic happens as we add a blending mode to this component. Since this is overlaid over this icon, we can set this to blending, multiply, and you can see it just adds this this crazy effect to the layer below it. Like if I set preview to yes, so it's animating, you can see without the blending mode, it looks like this. With the multiply blending mode, it interacts with the SVG below like this. It's just crazy, isn't it? Like it looks so cool. So yeah, that's how you do it. I'm going to also set z-index on this. Z-index is basically just defining the ordering of the layers. So z-index 4 means that it's going to be over the icon, which might have z-index, I don't know, 2. And then what I'm going to do to make it again look even better is duplicate this component, and I'm going to move it below the icon also with z-index. I'm going to set it to 1. And I'm going to remove the blending mode. So I'm going to set it to normal. And it is going to be a 50% radius on this. Also, just make sure that the size is matching this circle, like this. And then we're just going to slightly, again, tweak the properties here on the right, change the color and stuff like that to get the effect that we are looking for. So as you can see, these are the final settings that we need. As you can see, different colors, and these properties are also slightly different, but not that much. And you can see it already looks cool, but I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more subtle around the edges. And what I did is I just added a mask to this like circular animated gradient. On the right, I clicked style and then just added mask. And then it is a radial mask. And in the center, it's 100%, so it's visible on the center. And on the sides, it's 0%, so it's getting like less and less visible around the sides. So yeah, that's how this animated visual is created. It looks really nice, isn't it? Now for a little bit more craziness, you can see the background is still quite plain, and on the original you can see it has this animated gradient on the background as well. So for that, we can just again grab another instance of this animated background component and put it on the section level. So we're not putting within the content, we're putting it within the section. And then I'm just going to set it to absolute positioning, and I'm going to set it to pins. I'm going to make sure that all of these pins are set to 0. By the way, these pins are just saying that it has to be 0 pixels from all sides, so it will keep this 0 pixel distance, so it will essentially fill up the available space all the time responsively. This effect also looks pretty cool as it interacts with the text, but this is not what we want to do. So I'm going to remove the blending mode, and yeah, again, I will just have to tweak the properties on the right. So as you can see, these are the final settings on the right. Again, a little bit different colors, a little bit different settings, and it's not really looking cool because probably it's not pinned to all sides. So you can see that it has to be pinned to all sides with 0 pixels. That's how it's going to fill up the available space. Now this is a little bit too strong, right? We have to make it a little bit more subtle, but how do we do that? Well, we make sure that we add a mask. It's going to be a linear mask. Let's just go from left to right. And this point is going to be 15%. And then this is going to be 0. And it is going to be somewhere around here. So it is only going to be visible here on the left side. Yeah, as you can see, it has a subtle little effect in the background. But now if I hover over the start with AI, I don't see the hover state. That's a big problem. I cannot interact with anything. It's because now this overlay, this large gradient we put on this whole like website, it's not over everything. So it's just blocking the interaction. So what we have to do is we have to add pointer events to none to this component. So I'm going to select this overall instance of the component, and pointer events none is added. Now this means that we cannot interact with that, so we can interact with layers below it. Works really cool. Great, so now we can move on to the next section of this video, where we're going to add some navigation bars. Let's just add one navigation bar and yeah, stuff like that. So before that, I just cannot stand seeing that we don't have enough space on the edges here. That's because I forgot to do one thing. On this content frame, we have to have left and right padding. So you see how this space here will be fixed? You can see, now it's good. So left and right padding on the content frame is usually 20. And we don't have to like tweak it anywhere else. It's going to be always 20 on all breakpoints. And of course, we're going to do some extra optimizations here. But for now, that's all I wanted to do. For the navigation bar, I usually create it here on the canvas. So boom, draw a frame, name it navigation, remove the fill color, turn it into a stack. We probably already know these steps really well. Draw another frame within. Content, again, we kind of know this already. Max width, same 1100 pixels, width fill, and then padding, same left and right, 2020. Color will be removed, and then this logo will be placed inside of this content frame. To make sure that it's on the left, we're going to set the distribute to start. And that's it. We can now place this navigation within the desktop, and it's not going to be within the main container because navigation is not part of the main container. Main container only has this like sections, and then we have the navigation and the footer outside of that. To make sure that it's nicely visible all the time, even if we scroll down, we have to use fixed position, and we're going to have to pin it to the top, left, and right of the screen. And it's going to have maybe 64 pixels in height. So now, as you can see, we have that navigation bar on the top, nicely responds to different width changes, and yeah, it works really nicely. Maybe we want to have some buttons on the right side here, so I can go within the button. As you can see, now I'm selecting the button, I'm trying to select it, but this overlays what I'm selecting, this component that we edit here. By the way, sometimes it's gonna like show up as like this. You can reload the project, right click here, reload tab to fix that. Sometimes this component like starts acting up, and that's why it happens. As you can see, now it's fixed. But again, what I wanted to say is make sure that we're not selecting this gradient component on the top, we just lock it. So we press Command L as it's selected, and now we can select layers below. So I'll just go within this button component and create two new variants, or maybe just one. Let's just create one new variant, which is going to be called secondary, or just have navigation CTA. So this is the navigation call to action, and yeah, it is going to be smaller, 13 pixels, not 21, but 13. Letter spacing is 0. Then the height will be 34, and then the left and right paddings will also be 34. Actually not 34, this is 13, I don't know what I'm talking about. The radius will be only 8, and this is the navigation CTA. We also add hover state to this, and it is going to be border 100%. And if I preview this, it should work nicely, yeah. And I can just copy this, I can put it within the content inside of the navigation, and now it's right here. To make sure that it's on the right side, I can set space between for the distribute. It basically means that the first element is at the left, the second element is on the right. Pretty cool. I can set it to navigation CTA. To make sure that it's following the height that we set within the variant, or within the component, I have to set the instance height to fit content, and that's it. The content frame can be fit height. I can duplicate the button. Now you can see, because of space between, these are not really grouped together, so everything is like nicely spaced out. But I can just simply select these two buttons and wrap them in a stack with Option Command Enter, and then set that to fit width with Shift and A. As you can see, I'm using a little bit more shortcuts right now because we're nearing the end of the video, and yeah, I don't know, I just cannot right click and add the stack anymore. So yeah, now we have the navigation bar as well. It's nicely responding to different width changes. The last thing we need to do before animating this website with appear effects is making sure that it looks great on all breakpoints. So for that, there are two things that we need to do. First, optimize the layout, and then we're actually first optimize the text, so make sure that the text is responsive in terms of size, and then the layout should be also responsive. So let's see how can we make this text responsive. First thing we have to do is we have to set the base size for each breakpoint separately. So 20 pixels will be on desktop, 18 will be on tablet, and 16 will be on phone. Why are we changing these base sizes? Well, because we can then go and set rem for the heading. If we turn it into rem instead of pixels, it's going to be a responsive unit, because rem is just a multiplier of the base size. So if base size is 20 here, and we multiply it by 3.8, we're going to get 76. But now it is going to be smaller here because the base size is changing. You can see as I change base size to 18, from 20, it's nicely scaled down. And same here, 16, it's much smaller, but still we need to optimize the layout as well to make sure that it's nicely visible. And by the way, I'm going to add this rem to this text layer below as well. It's 20 pixels, I'm going to turn it into rem. And that's it. For this small text layer, I'm not going to use rem. Those can stay on fixed pixel units. Okay, so now go on to the tablet. Here, I think we can just simply make the icon and this big gradient that we have over it a little bit smaller, something like this. This is basically the only optimization that we need here. And then here, we can just set the direction to vertical. Now you can see that it's slightly cutting off. The reason why this is happening is because this section here on the primary, you can see it's set to a fixed height, we have to set it to fit content. I mean, actually set it to fit content in the way that I'm previewing the phone. So as I set the section on the primary breakpoint to fit content, now it's going to be much better. It's still not great actually. So I don't know. Okay, so the reason why it's not working is because the section on the phone, it has an override in height. I didn't do it. Sometimes Framer, I noticed that it has like these overrides sometimes. You have to reset the override. Now it's gonna follow the fit size that we set on the primary. So now it's gonna be much better. And yeah, here we're gonna also just make the icon and this background gradient a little bit smaller. And that's it. Also the illustration frame can be smaller, and maybe this gap between these elements can be a little bit bigger. I think that's it. It's optimized, right? Like if I take a look at this phone, yeah, it's optimized. Now there's something I don't really like, and that's the fact that when I start resizing this, everything is like pushing. You can see I want to have like nice jumps between these states. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set max width values, different max width values on the content frame for different breakpoints. So on tablet, we're going to set the content max width to 800 pixels. And then on phone, we're going to set it to 400 pixels. So now you're going to see that there's no pushing and pulling. It's just nicely jumping into these different width changes. I think it's much nicer. I prefer this, but if you prefer pushing and pulling, that's totally fine. But yeah, the point is that we have this website. It looks pretty cool. The only thing we have to do is to add a few appear effects and then publish it, and it's live on the internet. So let me show you the easiest way to add appear effects. We're selecting all of the elements that we want to animate in. So navigation, text, buttons, text, and illustration. And then on the right, we just add appear and we define the enter effect that we need. So I just want to animate it in from 0 opacity and a little bit of a bottom offset. So they're going to come in from the bottom. And that's it. The transition will be a little bit longer, maybe 0 bounce. And that's it. Now if I preview this, as you can see, everything comes in at the same time, which is not something I really like. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to select the elements in order that I want to animate in. So I'm going to select first the heading 1. Appear, I'm going to override the transition, delay to 0.1, then the text layer below it will be 0.15, buttons will be 0.2, this text layer will be 0.25, the illustration is going to be, let's say, 0.25, and then the navigation will be 0.3. Again, it's acting up, whatever. As you can see, it works really nicely. Now we have this staggered effect. I don't really like that it's cutting off, so you can see that the text here and the buttons are slightly cutting off. The reason why that's happening is because we have a bunch of overflow set to hidden. So I'll select all of these wrapping stacks and everything here, and I'm going to set all of them to overflow visible. So now it's no longer cropping, as you can see. One more thing I want to change, the navigation shouldn't come in from the bottom, but from the top. So I'm going to set the offset to the top as instead. And then the illustration shouldn't move from the bottom. It should just fade in. And once I have these, I can preview the site. It works nicely. We have the appear effect, we have the animation on the buttons and the visual and everything. So the last thing that we have to do is again to go to the top right, click publish. And in just a few seconds, as you can see, we have it live on the internet. So I can open it and I don't know, do anything with it, whatever I want to do. So yeah, I hope that this little tutorial was helpful and you were able to build this this stunning little hero section with me, and hopefully you learned a bunch of things along the way. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, or I don't know, if you want to say something. I know that this could have been a course or whatever, but yeah, I just enjoy teaching you guys. So yeah, hopefully it was helpful. And yeah, also check out Framer.University, by the way. So if you go to Framer.University, there's like a bunch of resources. You can see over 400 resources here. You can remix all of these. There are like a bunch of components. Some of them has videos. So if you see like a little icon tutorial, means that this has like a tutorial video, like a dedicated tutorial. So it's pretty amazing, I think, if you're learning Framer, or if you're just looking for like crazy scroll animations, components that you can use on your site, or just lessons, tutorials just like this. And yeah, you just want to take your skills to the next level. So yeah, check out Framer University. And yeah, basically that's it. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.